like living with HSAN, and how does it affect your day-to-day life routines?
Well, since I'm not the one living with it, it's really hard for me to say. But as a parent living with it, when you have a little baby and they just don't understand what's going on, it's terrifying. We just watched some old family video like a couple weeks ago, and there's Gabby sitting in her high chair, and we noticed her feet were all bandaged, and it was because she would get really excited, and it was summertime, and she hit the bottom of the high chair so hard that it cut her feet, and they would just bleed.
I'm eating the blueberries.
Yes, it's where you're eating the blueberries, Gabby.
I love that one.
You have to go away, though, Freddie, while we're doing it. Sorry. Sorry, Charlie. So it's terrifying, but once you find even one other person and can share what has worked with your child and what hasn't, it seems to make that fear go away, even though you can't anticipate every possible injury. You, at least by meeting another family, you know you're not alone, and you can talk about things that work for your child, and they might not always work for every child, but at least then you get sort of some sense of security and structure, I guess, because with no answers, there's no structure. Today, it's very different than when Gabby was 2, when she couldn't speak to us and tell us what she was feeling or wasn't feeling. Today at school, she's very capable of kind of watching over herself. She doesn't notice small cuts and bruises very well, but if she does start to bleed, she'll bring it to somebody's attention. And she's just much more able to explain to us what she's feeling, sensing. Nothing ever really hurts her, but she'll say it feels funny, and then we know to pay attention to her. So in that regard, it's changed dramatically from when she was 1, 2, 3 to today where she's almost 10.
How do you feel when people say that Gabby is lucky not to feel pain?
In a way, I understand where they're coming from, because everybody's felt some pain that they wish they hadn't felt in their life. But saying that she is lucky is absolutely not the case. And when people realize who they're talking to, I've run into people at the pharmacy or something, and they'll say, oh my gosh, I never thought of it in those terms. I am lucky to feel pain because it's obviously my body telling me something's wrong and I need to take care of it. So it doesn't bother me, because I've said the same thing. Oh, you hit your foot on something, or you get a terrible paper cut, and you're just like, oh, if you could just make it go away. You think, oh, wouldn't that be great? But then when you really start to think about why pain is present, then you really come to the understanding that it is there for a reason. And while it would be nice to get rid of maybe an ache from a sunburn because you were silly and stayed out too long and didn't wear your sunscreen, or maybe you moved a bunch of furniture helping friends in college or something, and you're like, oh, I wish that would go away. You just learn that it's okay. I mean, pain really has a purpose, and as long as you can treat it and deal with it, I'd much rather she could feel it, and so I guess I don't really get upset anymore. But
what hopes and goals do you have for Gabby in the future?
My hopes and goals for Gabby are almost the same as they are for her sister, honestly. That she is a good person, that she is kind to people, that she works her hardest up to her abilities, and I know they're much greater than some people suspect. I know it does feel unfair to her sometimes. It's harder for her to read quickly, and she just loves reading and to keep at the same pace as her peers. That can be difficult, but I don't have any limitations for her. I see her going to college. I keep teasing her, though, that I'm going to go with her to protect her or to help her. I don't have any less hopes and dreams for her than I do for her sister. I think she's perfectly capable of doing what she wants to do, and we'll make sure that she gets the tools and whatever she needs to get her there. She'd like to go to Africa someday and work with animals, so I think that would be really cool. I'm hoping she does.
What struggles have you had with the disorder?
Where do you want me to start? Like I had said, when she was younger, it was much more difficult because she didn't regulate body temperature. That's part of the condition. She just can't sweat properly, so she would overheat very quickly as a baby and go into these seizures. And those were frightening because you can see the effects of a seizure. They're shaking she'd basically pass out in front of your eyes. And you'd have to rush to the hospital, and we don't have much family here in Minnesota. Now we have none, but then we only had my sister. So that was always scary to figure out where our support was coming from. Really just trying to keep her safe each year and trying to keep her bones and joints safe so she'll grow and develop properly. That's always been a huge concern ever since we found out about the disorder. So it's a constant struggle, but you have to learn to manage it, because I could sit at the computer all day, I could research, I could really pour my whole life into it, and for a while I did, and I do enjoy still helping other families and still talking about things, but at some point you just have to say, we're going to do the best we can, and we have to live life, because if you are crippled by whatever it is you're going through, you're going to miss out on so much more around you. And someday if she ends up in a wheelchair, big whoop, at least she can still love and hug and laugh and interact with people. That's really not that big a deal. But at the same time, we have learned from others, and we're trying our very best to make sure it never gets to that point. We are extremely lucky to live here in Minnesota, where the healthcare system is incredible, and we've been able to reach out to the very best specialists in orthopedics and eye care, any other area where she personally has had problems. We've been able to connect some of those doctors to other families too. So that's something that we'll probably always have to work on. But I don't feel like we're struggling so much anymore now that she's older. I feel like we're maintaining, and we're learning to listen to her to see where she might need help or where she thinks her body's not working as well. So,
how did you find out about Gabby's disorder?
When Gabby was 3 or 4 months old, she started to cut her first teeth, which is kind of early, but her sister had done the same thing, so I didn't think too much of it. But she started biting on her fingers and chewing them so much that the skin, it literally looked like raw hamburger. It was so raw and red and bloody and not good skin anymore. And that was pretty frightening. I knew right then that somehow there was a disconnect in the brain. I didn't know what was causing it, but I knew something was wrong. Luckily, we had a really good physician at the time who listened to me, got us in fairly quickly to a neurologist. And he was able to diagnose her within 2 visits, but the information he had in his huge library of pediatric medical books was less than a paragraph. It was maybe 4 lines in this incredible library of pediatric medical books. And that's when I kind of started to panic, because I realized if we were alone, this is going to be one crazy thing to deal with, and how would you ever find out about what to do? But luckily, in that same whole time frame, I was very used to using the internet at work, and that became such a godsend and such a tool. At first to read through medical journals and try to learn more about it, but then just to connect with other people and other families. It's been, I'm sure it's changed many other lives too, but it's been so important throughout the course of her life to keep researching, keep seeing who's studying the disorder, keep finding out new groups of people who might have similar issues or similar in the same family of disorders. So she was really very young. By 6 months we had the diagnosis, but it was another couple of years before we realized there were several more people like her, and we're able to put that part of the puzzle together too.